it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm so excited for because I'm finally getting around to reviewing probably one of the most requested new releases of the last 2 months, which is the new KALEIDOS Fresh Fantasy Collection. It feels like this collection, particularly the eyeshadow palettes, were aimed specifically at me. So that's fun, because look, we've got basically a soft, glam, beautiful neutral palette that I gravitate to on a daily basis, and then when I want to go for colors, you know it's gonna be purples. So I've been super excited to test out this collection. And I saw this collection actually getting a lot of buzz on like mainstream makeup Instagram as well. It really makes me happy whenever I see indie brands being posted on Trendmood, for example, just because I feel like that's a very unsaturated market with the best indie brands. I gotta say, Kaleidos, even in a time that I'm really not excited about most makeup releases, Kaleidos consistently gets me excited about their new releases. So I was really glad to see this collection getting a lot of recognition that it deserved. I do have some mixed feelings, so I'll get to everything in this video, but this collection includes 2 different eyeshadow palettes, as you saw. We have the Futurism 6, the Lunar Lavender palette, beautiful dreamy purple color scheme with some beautiful duochromes and mattes in here, and then the one that hit me right in the middle of the fake boobs was the Futurism 7 Sashimi Cities, and I will freak out about the shade names later on, but it's a neutral palette inspired by Japan. This is an attack. Those are the 2 palettes, and then there are 3 cheek trios inside the collection. These are the Charisma Contour palettes, and I really love how they went about this. The trio that I've been using is the Cool and Light. We have the Warm and Medium for medium skin tones right here, and then we have the Warm and Deep one for deeper skin tones. So the medium and the deep are both in the indie makeup giveaway that should be closing tonight, but I got a feel for the formula by using this one myself. And then of course, to kind of top off the collection, there's the Lucid Lip Gloss in the shade Dramatize. So this is not a new formula by any means. I have many different shades of this lip gloss, and I've reviewed these in the past, but new shade for the collection. I'm of course wearing pretty much all the products on my face today except for the neutral palette, and I'll flash looks on screen where applicable, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Today's Dew Fairy of the day is Anna Krave. Thank you so much for having your notification bell on. And that's all I have to say. Nothing is different about my appearance today. Absolutely nothing at all. Let's go. Okay, in true me fashion, I'll start out with the palettes. I usually start with palettes whenever I'm doing a collection review video, but I had high hopes for these. Obviously, you guys know I really love Kaleidos' eyeshadow formula, and I love their Futurism palettes, so I did have very high expectations for these ones. I was really interested to actually see how they would do a fully neutral palette. The original first 3 Futurism palettes, I believe it was Futurism 2, that was a bit more of a neutral color scheme, but it still had a couple pops of color in it, and it was a little bit deeper, so I know Nisa loves that palette a lot. For me, it wasn't particularly what I'd go for in a neutral palette, so I did pass that on to a friend. I was excited because this is exactly what I look for in my neutral palettes, and I had a feeling that I would be reaching for this very often for work. And then of course I was excited about the purple palette, because why wouldn't I be? I'll start with the Lunar Lavender palette. Obviously packaging, always A1. Got kind of like a coral reef slash like ocean type thing on here. I really love that they make each of their palettes feel like art. Right down to the details, you kind of have this like iridescent finish to it on the outside. Given that these palettes are each $24, I think the fact that they're able to do all this artwork on the outside is amazing. So here's the palette. 6-pan color scheme, has a mirror as always, as all the other Kaleidos Futurism palettes do. And it's actually mostly mattes, which I really love to see. You don't see that very often in more vibrant color schemes, but Kaleidos I think is really good about balancing the mattes and shimmer ratio in their palettes. Right off the bat, my eyes went straight to the duochromes, so I'm wearing both of them on my eyes right now. This is pretty much all over the lid, and then the shade, and then the lighter shade right here is on the inner part of my lid and then the inner corner. I also have this lavender shade here in the crease, and then this deeper amethyst shade to kind of deepen it out. Pretty sure this is the correct layout of the shade names. It could be the opposite way around. This plastic insert fell out and I forgot which way it aligns, but honestly, I don't care what the shade names are. It just matters that they're beautiful. They did, however, name one of them Wisteria, which I believe is the sexiest word in the English language, so 10 points to Kaleidos. There's a few notes that I have on this one. Number 1, the shimmers, as always, amazing. I think Kaleidos does a really good job in making duochrome shimmers like this that aren't super flaky and that stay shifty on the eyes throughout the day. Like the darker, more shifty duochrome purple here almost looks kind of wet on the eyelids in the right lighting, and I think that's kind of similar to how some of the other duochromes in Kaleidos' other palettes perform. So in terms of consistency of formula, I think they did a really great job with these palettes. I was concerned about the purple mattes in here just because I'm always concerned about purple matte formulas, and I gotta say this shade right here showed up a little bit warmer on the eyes than I was expecting. I was kind of expecting it to be this like truly cool toned lilac shade like in the Solmon palette from Odin's Eye. I feel like this did pick up a little bit more warmth on the eyes as I blended it out, and that might just be it picking up on the undertones in my skin tone, but it was a little bit less like true lavender and a little bit more like pinky ish lavender shade than I liked. Still beautiful though, and I still think it blended out really easily, which is pretty hard to find in a lavender shade like this. The darker purple in here I thought performed fine on its own. I did find it a little bit harder to blend out or just get it to stick down when I was using it with this shade here. So when I put this one down first in the crease, I feel like to get it to show up to the vibrancy that I wanted, I did use quite a bit of eyeshadow. So my eyelid was a little bit less tacky once I was finished. And then when I started to kind of try and pack this shade on, it was having a little bit of a harder time to take to the eyelid. But I was able to kind of get the look to where I wanted it to be. So I guess really no complaints. I think it's just the way that purple shadows perform in general. The two browns in here are okay. I do kind of feel like one of them could have been swapped out. I personally would have really loved this kind of cerulean shade in here to be represented in the palette. Kaleidos usually does a really good job of representing the packaging colors on the outside inside the color scheme of the palette, and I feel like this would have been like the perfect addition to the palette. They could have swapped out one of the brown matte shades in here, especially because if I was using a purple palette, I probably wouldn't be reaching for a brown matte. I can see why they did it, just so you could kind of do a more neutral look using this shade here maybe, but I don't know, I think it would have been really pretty if they'd done this shade, just because I don't really have that many cornflower blues and I would have loved to see Kaleidos do one. But overall it performed pretty well, and then I want to compare it to two other things. So first off, another Kaleidos palette, the Escape Pod palette, which came out earlier this summer. This did have some purples in here and some purple duochrome, so I was kind of, I don't know, I was kind of shocked because it seems like a bit of a similar color scheme. I feel like a lot of the shades in this palette are represented in here. I like the performance of the purple mattes in here better, but I like the shimmers in here better. Do I think that you would need both of these if you already had this palette and you were thinking about getting this one? Honestly, not really. I feel like you can create a lot of the looks that I did with this one using this palette and using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shades in here. But if you liked the purple shades in this palette but you just wanted the purples and not the rest of the vibrant shades, I would definitely go for this one. It's also a little bit less expensive, and I do like the packaging of the Futurisms a little bit more. This is really compact. This, I really do feel like the packaging was a little bit unnecessarily bulky, but I do like the palette inside. So that's it compared to the Escape Pod palette. And then someone also asked me to compare it to the Solmon palette from Odin's Eye. Honestly, not much overlap besides the one lilac shade in here. I can see where you would be coming from with like the neutral shades in here, but really I don't think that there's much similarity between these two palettes. This is pretty gorgeous on its own right, so I'm wearing it on my eyes right now, but I think I will be definitely reaching for this quite a bit throughout summer. No, not even summer. It's like fall already. That's literally insane. However, this I think was my favorite of the two palettes.
Clap if you care. Clap if you care.
So here is the Sashimi City palette, and here are the shade names. Soy sauce. That's it. I have to wear this palette on my wedding day. I have to walk down the aisle wearing an eyeshadow named Show You. Immediately when I opened it though, it did give me pretty heavy ABH Soft Glam vibes, just because of the mix of the very warm tone neutrals with the kind of like pinkier ones. I would say that this is like an amped up version of the Soft Glam palette with better or just like more duochrome, more impactful shimmer shades. The mattes in here do overlap a lot, so I think you kind of get a dupe for Orange Soda, Sienna, Rustic, and Mulberry in terms of the mattes, but I think the shimmers in here are what kind of makes this stand out, plus the price is pretty much almost half of what Soft Glam is. So the shimmer here called Penthouse, this kind of looks like a champagne in the pan, but it has kind of like a almost green tone shift to it. Kind of reminds me of the Alter Ego Goddess palette, like a goldish shimmer with a little bit of a green flip. I wasn't expecting that, so I put it on with neutral look to go to work, and then I was like, oh, that's green. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I can't wear like super colorful shades like that, so I did have to kind of wipe this off and then use a more neutral color. Just keep that in mind, the shimmers aren't really like a true neutral palette. It's a neutral palette that's amped up. I just ended up putting Ritz on my eyelids and I was like, yeah, we're good. Pink shimmer in here called Pink Ginger. This is a little bit more neutral, but it kind of has a peachy tone flip to it as well. So reminds me of Rose Gold in the Soft Glam palette if Rose Gold was a lot more glittery with a bit of a peachy duochrome. I did love the neutrals in here, especially Salmon Skyline. This, I don't know what I was expecting. It's kind of like the perfect mix between a peach tone and a neutral brown. It can really work in either application, so if you kind of pair it with some more like pinky or reddish tone neutrals, I think it can pull really towards the pink side, but if you pair it with a classic brown, it'll look just neutral brown and not sus at all. So this for me, 9 out of 10. This I would say 7.5 out of 10, but I think the palettes are lovely and an amazing addition to the Futurism collection. So as always, not shocked to be saying this, good job Kaleidos. When it comes to the Charisma Contour palettes, I love the idea. First of all, packaging, amazing. They kind of carried through the aesthetic of their lo-fi packaging for the blush duos into the Charisma Contour palettes. I love the kind of like a brushed cardboard feeling. It's a little bit like a rubberized texture. Very easy to wipe down and clean and just feels very nice, like good weight, luxurious, beautiful. So regarding the contour palettes, I'll first just start talking about the formula in general. You have a fill, shade, and chisel shade in here. I tend to go for cream contours over powder contours, but I was still pretty excited about this. The tones in here, they really did nail down a very nice cool tone shade. This kind of reminded me of the Kevin Aucoin sculpting powder. And then the formulas are really, really, really nice and buttery and not too pigmented. So you can see there, you have color payoff, but it's not aggressive. So I feel it's really easy to blend out, and this is a good formula for beginners at contouring. Overall, I like the formula. I didn't really use this much other than on the sides of my nose, but again, I've kind of given up on nose contouring. I've just accepted that my nose is gigantic and I can't do anything about that non-surgically. So that's pretty much how I feel about the formula of the contour palette. Really beautiful, very smooth formula, beginner friendly. I do want to really quickly compare the fair toned contour palette and then the medium. I don't really feel like there's enough distinction between the two. I don't know, I had a really hard time picking which one I was going to keep just because I felt like they were very similar and kind of confused me. Obviously the bronzer shade in here is a little bit more warm toned and a little bit darker, and then the contour shade in here is just a hair darker than the one in here. However, the lighter shade in here is lighter in this palette than it is in this palette. So I thought that this one was the fair one until I read the back and I was like, okay, so I did end up just going with what the label said on the back and keeping this one for myself and deciding to pass along the medium one, but I still think that I would have been able to use both of these. I do think there should have been a little bit more distinction between these two palettes, but overall I think they did a great job with the formula. And then as someone who is very white and Asian, obviously I didn't use this one on myself, but I think this is really beautiful, very rich tones in here, and I really love that Kaleidos tried to be inclusive with this launch. So overall I think they really killed it on the formula of these ones, but again, it's just those like small details that they carry through that make it just feel like such a luxurious brand and experience, and I just love that they care so much about the experience they give their users, and that's really hard to find in brands today. And then finally, to finish off, we have the Lucid Lip Gloss in the shade Dramatize. They've come out with a bunch of shades of the Lucid Lip Gloss. My personal favorite is Fantasize. It's this kind of like rose gold with a bit of like a peachy, almost orangey tone duochrome flip. And then this, I am wearing a little bit on my lips right now. It's pretty sheer, so I wouldn't say it's aggressive in terms of tone, but this is really unique. It's kind of like an orangey reddish shade. Like, I would describe this as chili mango. I think probably the closest dupe that I have to this one would be the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb in the shade Cheeky. They don't look very similar, but I think this looks very similar on the lips. Formula is still good. I really like the Kaleidos Lucid Lip Gloss formula. It's a pretty thin formula. They are glittery glosses. As you can see, they have a duochrome flip to them, but I don't think that they look stupid on the lips, if that makes sense. Like, some glittery glosses just look really not good, like 2000s, but in a bad way. These, I think, can give you a nice glossy glittery finish, but it's not aggressive. And then I just find them to be very comfortable to wear throughout the day. So overall, if you want to try out a shade like this, I think this is a beautiful option. But if you're just wanting to try out the formula, I always recommend Fantasize because it's just, she's that bitch. And that is it for the entire collection. Honestly, I liked everything. I would say that my number one favorite thing is the Sashimi City palette, but I do love the Lunar Lavender too for different reasons, and I think they're both really good additions to the Futurism collection. So my now updated Kaleidos Futurism palette collection is Futurism 3 Astro Pink. Still one of my favorites. Still, I think, the most underrated one of the entire collection. Futurism 4 VR Neon. She's beautiful. Not for everyone, but she's beautiful. Futurism 5 Electro Turquoise. Very underrated color scheme. Like, wow. So beautiful. So unique. Futurism 6 Lunar Lavender, and then Futurism 7 Sashimi City. Ranking wise, that's difficult. I would go, honestly, Astro Pink is my favorite. The packaging is beautiful, but the color scheme I just think is so gorgeous. Sashimi City comes in a close second. Next, I would probably say Electro Turquoise, Lunar Lavender, and then VR Neon. But there's like a half-point difference between all of these. I think they're all amazing. I don't really think that you need the Lunar Lavender palette if you already have the Escape Pod palette and vice versa. But I did want to make sure I included a comparison because I feel like obviously two purple-ish palettes coming out from the same brand during the same season warrants a comparison. The contour palettes are great. I'm excited to give away these too. And then the gloss is pretty. If you're wanting a very unique color like this, I think you'll love this. So that is it for today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. I love you. Bye.
You can't get rid of me, bitch! I'm not going nowhere!